So, have you ever felt like you're living part of a story, but inside you there's an inner knowing that lets you know that you're more than what you've been told and more than what you've believed? This is the story of how I woke up. So, as a child, I have memories of feeling this loving energy around me, and there was just like a loving presence that I felt so connected to when I was really small. And this is from like 5 years old, 6 years old. And there was just this inner knowing within me that this energy was God. But as I got older, as tends to happen, you get socialized into the culture that you're born in. And for me, the culture that I was born in was a Christian one. And so I started going to church every Sunday with my family, obviously. And with time, I was conditioned to believe in the God of the Bible. But as I grew to understand this God that I was being taught about, I felt more disconnected to this loving presence. And for a while, it didn't seem to be that bad. Like I didn't feel anything except just like a connection to God, because this is who I was being taught about. But as I got older, I started to feel this really like a growing sense of frustration and dissatisfaction and misalignment. And during that whole process, I went through so many swings of like getting saved and backsliding and getting saved and backsliding, because I kept trying to find that same feeling of love that I had felt as a child in this, new, with this God that I was being taught about. But it just was not working at all. And by the time I was in my 20s, I was just like, I can't do this. I had gone back to church because I was like, there's always been such a drive for me to find God, to live a spiritual life. And so I had gone to church once again after backsliding, hoping to find this connection. And I had tried this church and I tried this church and I tried this church, and I just got to the point where I was so tired. And I remember I was in the middle of a discipleship course that I was doing at the particular church that I had joined at that point. And I was just once again feeling this growing sense of dissatisfaction. So I became so frustrated that I said this prayer, and I can never forget this. I sat down and I just said, I was like, God, you are the one who created me. I remember feeling you as a child. And so I know that you're there. I know like that's indisputable for me. But I'm tired of trying to find you in these places and I'm never finding you. So because I've looked, and for real, you've seen I've looked, could I then just let this go and allow you to find me? And I'm asking you from the depths of my heart, could you please find me so that I know that this is real? And after I said that prayer, I let it go completely. What's interesting about that is what happened a few months later. So there was this bookshop that was in Nairobi Central Town. And what they would do is like they would give you membership so you could borrow books. And I think it was like 1,500 or 2,000 per year. That deal was so amazing. So you could pay that amount, and then for the whole year, you can take like 2 or 3 books at a time and borrow as many books. Like even if you go daily, it's fine. And it was such a steal. I really wish that it was still there. So I was going through books, because I really love books. I mean, you can tell. I really love books. So one day I'm just doing like my regular exchange. I've come with the books that I finished and I'm about to exchange them for others. So I'm walking around this bookshop and one book in particular catches my eye. And when I see the title of this book, I remember that I was told about this book when I used to be in church. And what I was told about it was that this was not a good book. It was actually blasphemous, and it appeared to be a holy book or a book that was talking about God, but apparently it was from a false prophet. That's what I was told. But as I looked at this book at that point, there was something inside of me that was just like, get this book, get this book. So I picked it up and I'm like, okay, what do I have to lose? If I don't like it, I just bring it back. So I go and I sign out with this book. I go get into my matatu, and as I'm sitting in the matatu, which for those who don't know, that's like the public transportation in Kenya or in Nairobi, I'm sitting in the matatu and I open this book because I used to love, that was my time on commutes. I would love to read because, I just like get into the zone of the book. And so I open up this book and I'm reading it. And as I'm reading it, my heart starts pounding and I feel like my blood is rushing and like my head is getting light, like I'm feeling kind of dizzy, because every single question that I had been grappling with when I was in the church was being answered by this book. And in this book, the author was having a conversation with God, asking him all the questions that he had, and God was actually responding. And when I was reading these responses, there was something in me that was also responding to them and feeling like they were the truth. And I did not put that book down for the next couple of days, unless it was just to put it down to be like, what? I was only taking breaks to like sleep, cook food, like whatever. But I was so engrossed in the book that I finished it, I think, within probably like maximum 2 days, maybe a day and a half. I'm not even sure. Because this was finally the answer that I had been looking for. And I want to say so much more about this because this book was completely life-changing for me. And how it changed my life was that, first of all, I went back to the place of feeling the connection with that energy that I had felt as a child. Once again, I was having this relationship with that loving presence that I felt, that God that I knew intuitively for myself, that was not an interpretation from somebody else. And I don't mean to knock like religion, because I feel like there are people who really thrive when it comes to like religion, people who are thriving in Christianity, in Judaism, in Hinduism. Like I feel like there are people who are really thriving in that and who have found their truth, which I find is wonderful. But for me, I just could not connect to another person's interpretation of who God was. I needed it to be a personal experience. And through reading this book, it's like I was being returned to that natural place of spirituality, that natural place of that deep connection with God. And so that was the big change for me. First of all, I understood that my relationship with God was my relationship with God. I didn't have to go through any kind of intermediary, like there was nothing that I needed to go through to have that relationship. The other thing that happened was the anxiety, the dissatisfaction, the frustration, the misalignment that I had felt in religion disappeared completely. And now I didn't have that anymore. I still had questions. But the beautiful thing about now having this relationship was I wasn't being given an answer that didn't feel right. This book had answers for almost like literally all the questions that I had. And it put to rest a lot of things, but also for other questions that I developed after that. I don't have to go searching outside myself to find the answer. I just feel it intuitively for myself through this relationship with God. And whatever makes sense for me. And if it doesn't, I drop it. The other thing was that I just relaxed into life because I began to understand exactly what it is that we were doing here. For so long, I grappled with the question of like, what is this? Like, why are we here? How did we just show up here? And then it's like, we're supposed to live this life. You feel like a part of you feels bigger than this, but then you're not sure. Like, it just, these big questions of like, what are we doing here? What is life about? Were more or less answered. And I understood what this thing is, what life is, and what the afterlife meant for me. And this was such, I can't even explain the relief that I felt on a deeply spiritual level, because the concepts of heaven and hell just never fit for me. It just didn't make any kind of sense for me. I never understood why, if you were given this life by this being, if you are created by this being, who also created everything else, then how would you have the capacity to choose something else that is not this being unless you had been given the capacity to do that? I don't know if that makes sense. Like for me, I just didn't understand why we would be given a choice of like, take this or this. But then if you take this, then I'm going to destroy you. And not only destroy you, I will punish you for eternity. That just didn't add up for me. And also the fact that if, let's say I have been evil for 60 years, if you're going to punish me, why not just punish me for 60 years? Why does it have to be eternity? You know, so questions like these for me were being answered. And also the concept of heaven was also so foreign because I didn't understand. For me, it didn't feel like heaven to be singing for eternity, to be up there in the clouds, walking on cold streets of gold and singing all the time. Like, that doesn't sound heavenly to me. But I was supposed to feel like that would be a prize. And yeah, so those were the things that really shifted for me. And that moment, just looking at that book and picking it up, was the single most impactful moment in my life. It changed everything for me. And it began, now it's been 15 years of really deep discovery of a deeply personal relationship with this loving presence, a deeper understanding of my place in this game. And though there have been times when I've strayed and times when I've come back, there is no shame in that. There is no shame in the forgetting. And there's only love when I come back to the remembering. So that is the story of how I woke up. And if you're wondering, the book that I'm talking about is Conversations with God. I don't know if you can tell, it is a very used copy. It is a very, very used copy. You know, it even has because I have read this book over and over again. And I actually would want to talk more about the things that I've discovered in this book, because this is only book one. There's an entire trilogy to it. But yeah, this thing completely changed my life. And that's what I wanted to share. So stay curious, stay open, and please remember, above everybody else, you deserve your own unconditional love and acceptance. I'll see you soon. There's a version of you that's already free. A version of you that's focused, that's glowing and growing, and a version of you that's not waiting anymore. Do you want to meet them? My free 6-part series, From Stuck to Unstoppable, is available for you. Find the link in the description below.